And now Republicans in the House of Representatives have inserted into their big, beautiful, must-pass trillion-dollar tax break for billionaires legislation a provision that would let the president designate any nonprofit, from Harvard to ACLU to your local Democratic Party, a, quote, terrorist-supporting organization. And that, causes them to lose their tax-exempt status, effectively putting them out of business. And who gets to decide that designation? The president. And he gets to do it in secret. This is exactly how both Putin and Orbán first destroyed dissent and free speech in Russia and Hungary. The Great American Betrayal, How We Lost Our Moral Compass, is the title of my daily take over at HartmannReport.com today. And it's about how government is really, when you think about it, is really a moral force. Right? We want government to do what is right, not what is wrong. That's the essence of morality, right? And government as a moral force, even when it's a highly immoral government, is still taking a moral position. It's one you may not agree with. We may think it's terrible. But Russia, for example, saying that, no, you will go to jail if you talk about, the Ukraine war and call it a war. You and I might consider that immoral. Putin considers it perfectly moral. So, morality is a matter of definitions. But nonetheless, government is a moral force grounded in moral views of the world. And each of these different types of government, whether it's, Russia, the Saudi oppression of women, Russian violence against the queer community, the Iranian brutal suppression of the democracy movement, we would consider those things immoral. They all consider them moral, but nonetheless, it's all about morality. And America, we've had some dark episodes in our history. We've not always, in fact, we've only rarely lived up to our stated basic set of moral principles. That all people are born equal under the law, that power should flow up from the people rather than down from the leaders, that a free press, free speech, and freedom from religion are essential to liberty, and that defending the basic rights of all people to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is the core function of government. We've had a consensus on these things until now. And now Republicans in the House of Representatives have inserted into their big, beautiful, must-pass trillion-dollar tax break for billionaires legislation a provision that would let the president designate any nonprofit, from Harvard to ACLU to your local Democratic Party, a, quote, terrorist-supporting organization. And that, causes them to lose their tax-exempt status, effectively putting them out of business. And who gets to decide that designation? The president. And he gets to do it in secret. This is exactly how both Putin and Orbán first destroyed dissent and free speech in Russia and Hungary. Hey, if you're over 50 and experiencing joint stiffness, thinning hair, sagging skin, or brittle nails, there's a critical reason why, and ignoring it could accelerate aging from the inside out. A respected Texas doctor of physical therapy is sounding the alarm on a rapid decline of collagen, a structural protein essential for strong bones, flexible joints, and youthful skin. By age 50, your collagen levels may have dropped by over 50%, leaving your body vulnerable to pain, weakness, and visible signs of aging. That's why millions have turned to his breakthrough formula, Native Path Collagen, to restore what time takes away. This isn't just another generic supplement. This is a clinically supported, bioavailable collagen peptide that's helping men and women significantly strengthen bones and reduce joint pain, visibly reduce wrinkles and sagging skin, boost hair fullness and reverse nail damage, improve cellulite appearance, and feel real results in as little as 14 days. And right now, as a Thom Hartmann listener, you can claim up to 45% off, but only for a limited time at getnativepath.com/Hartmann. With over 5 million jars sold and with over 8,000 five-star reviews and a 365-day money-back guarantee, this is your moment to take control of aging before symptoms get worse. Go to getnativepath.com/Hartmann now. Supplies are limited and demand is surging. Trump has been pushing this for a decade. From his trying to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization, to his attacks on universities, to his use of Stalin's phrase, enemy of the people, to describe the press. We have seen in America, if you look at the arc of the entire almost 250-year history of this country, we have seen major reformations. The biggest ones have occurred about every 80 years. Obviously, the first one, we broke from England. The second one, after the Civil War, we had Reconstruction and the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments that, gave humanity and citizenship to non-white people, or recognized, embraced the humanity of non-white people. That was the first one after the Civil War. The second was during the Republican Great Depression, when FDR rebooted our republic and became, basically our government became the supporter of last resort for the working class, which produced the world's first, more than half of us, middle class. We're down below half right now because of Reaganomics, but we were there for a while. Almost 2/3 of us were in the middle class when Reagan was sworn into office. And now Trump and Musk and their cabal of right-wing billionaires are trying to dissolve virtually all of this, replacing our democracy with this illiberal democracy like we see in Russia and Hungary, where there are still elections, but their outcome is predetermined. There are still protections for the press and free speech, but only when that speech doesn't challenge those in power. And only the wealthy can truly buy safety and security. After the Saudi, Emirati, and Qatari governments each gave the Trump family massive gifts in the form of billion-dollar development and Trump hotel and golf course licensing deals, Trump made a speech in which he abandoned our 250-year history of advocating democracy around the world. This is not something new. We've often failed in our mission in the past, but these, for example, Reagan was, supporting the death squads in Central America. That still haunts our southern border. Eisenhower's embrace of the Shah still rattles the Middle East. Nixon's tolerance of Chinese brutality led us, in the name of capitalism, to help that nation's communist leaders create the most powerful and really medieval surveillance state in the history of the world. But these exceptions, where we essentially supported these anti-democratic nations, these exceptions actually prove the rule. When we abandon our own stated principles, like supporting the Shah, it backfires on us. It blows up in our face. The results are almost uniformly bad for us, for them, and for democracy around the world. And it becomes even more destructive when this administration rejects American values as it embraces bribes from foreign dictators, as it harasses journalists, as it imprisons op-ed writers, and as it threatens judges. Harry Truman was pretty explicit about this back in 1952. He said, "I stand for honest government. To me, morality in government means more than a mere absence of wrongdoing. It means a government that is fair to all. I think it's just as immoral for Congress to enact special tax favors into law as it is for tax officials to connive at a crooked tax return. It is just as immoral to use the lawmaking power of government to enrich the few at the expense of the many as it is to steal money from the public treasury. That is stealing money from the public treasury." And then Harry Truman, when he was president, it was 1952, he says, "Legislation that favored the greed of monopoly and the trickery of Wall Street was a form of corruption that did our country 4 times as much harm as Teapot Dome ever did. Private, selfish interests are always trying to corrupt the government in this way. Powerful financial groups are always trying to get favors for themselves." End of quote. And here we are. And Donald Trump, of course, does not share Harry Truman's worldview. I mean, Fred Trump raised Donald. Fred, built a real estate empire through racism, fraud, and deceit. And he raised Donald to view every transaction as necessarily win-lose. Every rule or regulation is something to get around. And every government official is somebody to be influenced with either threats or money. I mean, Robert Reich laid this out in his brilliant Substack, robertreich.substack.com. Yesterday, he said, "But starting with Reagan, America went off the rails. Deregulation, privatization, free trade, wild gambling by Wall Street, union busting, record levels of inequality, near stagnant wages for most, staggering wealth for the few, big money taking over our politics. Stock buybacks and the well-being of investors became more important than good jobs with good wages, and corporate profits became more important than the common good." End of quote. Greed is a type of moral stance. There's a moral argument that is made frequently for greed. David Koch made that when he ran for vice president in 1980. Ayn Rand made it throughout her life. Greed, however, is inconsistent with the history of humanity itself. I mean, I lay this out in The Hidden History of American Democracy. Margaret Mead pointing out that a healed leg bone in a 100,000-year-old skeleton shows that ancient humans took care of their own, right? That we have always been compassionate, essentially. Native American tribes dealt with people who stole or hoarded, even without the use of police or prisons. So the triumph of greed has historically been the exception rather than the rule. And when Trump said, "I've been greedy my whole life," it was one of the few honest bits of self-appraisal he's ever tendered. And it should have warned all of us. Greed and hunger for power are ultimately anathema to our traditional American values. And it's high time we started to say so and teach our children the difference between a moral nation that protects its weakest citizens while promoting democracy around the world versus an illiberal democracy like Russia, Hungary, and the vision of today's Republican Party. We've been better than this in the past, and it's high time we return to these moral positions that truly made America great. 15 minutes past the hour. Stay with us.